Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the DraftSeal number DS578AOAK36R. So this is a big piece of threshold. Not big. It's big for most manufacturers, not for DraftSeal. They make some really big ones. But I'll tell you what initially impresses me is the fit and finish. The oak is unblemished. It is clean. It is clear. It's not been stained at all. When oak gets wet, it has a very awful chemical reaction that cannot be sanded out. And this looks nice and clean. What the factory did here is there was a 150-foot length, which is how they sell it. We sell it in 36-inch lengths, and we have the factory cut them down, and that's exactly what you're seeing. Okay, this is a threshold that would be very typical for an outswing application and literally measures 36.5 inch. So let's back up. Outswing application. How many exterior doors on homes swing out? The majority don't. The majority swing in. Here in southern Florida, to have an outswing door is very common. We have code that in Florida that doesn't apply to code in Chicago about hurricanes. Okay, so having an outswing is very typical. What this doesn't include is the DS421 or similar DraftSeal curved-in style insert that's going to go in here, so you'll need to pick that up separately. And a typical might be a DS421B for brown, BL for black, W for white. DS DraftSeal 421, then the color B, BL, W. Okay, you'll stick that right in there. Nice quality item. Weighs about 5 pounds, just a skosh over 5 pounds. They say that it's 5 7/8. You can confirm that it's pretty much 5 7/8, maybe 5 15/16. There will be a slight angle that's happening here, and that's normal. You want that water to kind of come away off the face of that threshold a bit. Overall height is going to get us right to about 1 5/16 inches. Over here where the door is going to come into play is about 3/4 inch. Over here at the leading edge, you're going to be down closer to 9/16. The face of the threshold where the insert will come into, of the 5 7/8, that appears to be about 3.5 inch. The top portion of the threshold only, about 2 7/16. So that should get us to about 5 15/16. That is oak on the outside. That's going to be pine on the underside. There's no doubt. You do have a mixture of the wood on the exterior side, so be mindful of that. You've got some I'll admit I don't know what species of lumber that is, and it's very likely pine. I believe it to be pine just because of what I understand pine looks like. So you're going to have two different wood species that would be on the interior of the opening, but admittedly, you're probably going to have some tile work that'll come up to there, right? It's probably what's going to happen. It's probably not the end of the world. A radiused edge, okay, 5 7/8, your insert will go in. I'm impressed with the quality of that. That looks like a nice threshold. Let's switch to the screen view where we can take a look at some supporting documentation. So here is the item that we are looking at. A little cross section down here. Now that shows that insert ordered separately. It's not automatically included. Okay, I came up with about 1 5/16 over here. Residential outswing sill. Could you use this for an inswing? Don't see why not, but that's an awful tall gap to get over because, again, your flooring is probably going to run inside here. And here in southern Florida, it helps with meeting hurricane code requirements to have your door swing out rather than in, because you have the entire perimeter of the door with its stop helping prevent that door from coming inside of the house. Dimensions. Kerf not included, orders separately, extruded mill aluminum finish. There's a cut sheet here. Let's take a closer look at it. Nothing really new there except it's a single page that will allow you to express to someone in a document form what your intentions are. Product information, that's a cut sheet out of the catalog showing some variance just on that one page. And we're dealing with the 578A. And if you've not already guessed, 578 is 5 7/8. And if we were looking at 778, it might be 7 7/8. Okay. And then some variations on this. DS858. There you go, 8 5/8. They do have a vinyl sill protector. I would certainly recommend that if you were okay with not seeing the oak, because given enough years, that oak is going to wear down. And it will take years, but like all things, weather stripping fatigues and fails as well eventually. So you might consider that protective measure. Might be easier to remove and replace a PVC cap than it is this nice looking piece of oak, which would not be difficult, but milling something like this is going to involve someone with the skill and the desire. The desire first, the skill will come after the desire to make a piece of finished oak, which is not uncommon. I have lots of customers who could easily manufacture this out of a piece of 1x oak material and be done with it. Now, back to the item we're looking at, only listed in our site at 36.5 inch. Okay, not a problem. That's going to be typical and common for your 3-foot wide residential doors. And the reason that it's typical and common is because it's very likely that your 3-foot wide residential door actually measures 36 inch. And they will run that threshold long because you need a little bit of gap on either side. Maybe a little bit too long for the requirement, but nonetheless, if you order these types of thresholds, they're not going to ship at 36 inch. They're always a bit longer because the doors in the residential industry run wider. When they say it's 3 foot wide, the tape measure is 3 foot wide. That would not be how we would do it in a commercial application. You'll notice that there are no fasteners. There's no way to screw this down to the floor. This is meant to be a structural member of the frame when it's built, and the pre-hanger will literally nail, or staple, I should say, through the bottom of the jamb into the softwood that's down here. Okay, and that's how that's built. Staple it generally. If you're doing it, if you're making a pre-hung in your own shop, you might screw it together, but staples are pretty typical because it's a much more automated process. Link to the manufacturer's page here will allow us to review not only all of the DraftSeal products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the residential and commercial catalog. Let's take a look at that residential catalog first. DS578, that will allow us to get to the page where we can find this threshold. We're going to rotate that clockwise. Okay, now once you're in this section of the catalog, rotating it or not, you will come into a world of residential thresholds that only DraftSeal offers to the market. Nobody else has this sort of diversity on residential thresholds. I have had customers who have said, oh, I need a residential threshold and I'm not really sure what I want, and we talk about it and it sounds like thresholds from the common, manufacturers, the typical culprits, so to speak, don't fit the bill. So we go right to DraftSeal, and the world opens up because of the, the unique product offering that DraftSeal has, is the bottom line. The downside of finding something perfect for your application is this. It's coming out of British Columbia, so it's an international shipment. So that will cost very noticeable money to get an international shipment brought to you. What we do in almost all instances is we will send it in on our semi-monthly stock order. It comes into our location, we then ship it out to you, and we bring in a larger order internationally. So that's how we do that. So this residential catalog is really, really great. If you are in the residential door market, you'll want to be familiar with this catalog. They are not the only company who makes items like this intended for the pre-hanger market, but I would argue that they have more diversity and variety in their product catalog than anyone else. That that commercial catalog, that's nice, but that's going to show you the typical items that you're going to see in commercial applications. Thresholds, perimeter gasketing, door sweeps, door bottoms, etc. They do have some products here that others don't, and an example of that is going to be a 14 or 13 inch wide saddle threshold. Here, a 1/4 by 14. It's so big it's spread over 2 pages. They've got it in their catalog. Now it's going to be welded, but it's in their catalog. You're looking for a 14 inch wide threshold, DraftSeal might be the way to go. Okay, door bottoms are here. Automatic door bottoms, I should say. Perimeter gasketing, sweeps are here. We get down far enough and you might start to recognize these images from other manufacturers. They must have a working relationship with National Guard, I believe, because some of this definitely looks like some National Guard material. Okay, good quality people over at DraftSeal. Let's finish up this video on camera. And indeed, as I was saying just now, earlier, good quality people at DraftSeal. They are eager to help, they are friendly, they are polite, they are courteous, and they do want to assist you in getting the product that you need. I like this because it's clean, it's well manufactured, it's good. I would not have any trouble with this at all. But be mindful, if you're buying this, you're going to need to come up with a way to fasten this down. The people that typically buy residential thresholds from us are not pre-hangers. Pre-hangers might make 100 doors a day. They might make 1,000 doors a day. They may make, 4 million doors a year, whatever the case is. They're on a direct relationship with the DraftSeals of the world. You're probably calling us because you need to replace your threshold. It's been there 15 years and it looks awful. Like mine will in about 6 months. And the question becomes, how do I get the old one out? Well, as we've discussed, yours is probably stapled down here. You're just going to have to get that out of there. That's going to have to come out, pull out any mastic that is down here is going to need to come out. Now, I've considered ways to go about doing this, and I wouldn't really have a compunction about drilling through this with maybe Tapcons or machine screws and lead anchors. The problem with that is you're going to need to cover that somehow. I can imagine drilling a large enough hole after you have sourced a press-in plastic cap that once you've drilled through it, countersunk it, attached your threshold, silicone all of that area, then put your cap in there in that silicone area and clean up the mess. And while you're going to see those little buttons there, I really don't have a more elegant suggestion as to how to retrofit a threshold that was never intended to be retrofit. Okay, I've thought in my head there ought to be a way of taking these subcomponents, attaching them to the floor, to the sill, and then having this aluminum material manufactured in such a way that I could pressure fit it into and over the subcomponents. There ought to be a modular way to handle that. I suppose if I studied the problem long enough, I'd be able to come up with solutions for it. But at the end of the day, you need to get the threshold replaced. You need to do it so that you're not piercing through and allowing water to come in. And if I was going to do that, I would certainly have sealant, and I would probably put a water pan as well, which is really nothing other than a piece of metal, like a very thin piece of aluminum, that will act as a barrier. But again, piercing through that is where the trouble is. So you want to really cover that as best as you can. The way that these work is when they're manufactured, they're stapled through the sides of the jambs. There are no piercings through the threshold, therefore nothing to worry about. So you'll have to come up with some way to get that attached. I've had people tell me that they're just going to glue it down. Okay. I'm suspect of that actually working naturally. But no one's ever called me and said it didn't work, so who knows. That link below this video to the manufacturer's page will get you access to those resources. I am a fan of DraftSeal. I would recommend that you consider them. I would consider them for my own use as well. Any questions on the DS578A Oak Threshold or any other DraftSeal product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.